This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Mr. Rigby, in May of 2021, you were the National Security and Intelligence Advisor to the Prime Minister. Did you receive the May 2021 CSIS Issues Management Note indicating that there was intelligence that the Beijing regime intended to target MP Michael Chong, another MP, and their families?
Not that I'm aware of. I do not recall receiving that IMU.
When did you first become aware of this Issues Management Note?
Through the newspapers.
And so that would have been in recent weeks?
Very recently, yes.
Okay. At page 27 of the Johnson report, he indicates that the Issues Management Note was sent to the attention of the then Minister of Public Safety, Bill Blair, along with his Chief of Staff and Deputy Minister via what he called the top secret network email. Last Thursday, when Minister Blair appeared before this committee, I asked him about this, and he said that that was not correct, that, quote, there is no email account in which top secret information is shared with ministers, end of quote. So given your familiarity as the National Security Advisor, whose account of the facts is correct? Is it Mr. Johnson? Is it Minister Blair? Because both can't be right.
Madam Chair, I can't speak to the details of how intelligence is shared in ministers' offices. It's done in different ways in different ministers' offices. I know for myself, I rarely myself took things right off of the system. I had hard copy packages presented to me. That's the way we did it for the Prime Minister as well. That's how we did it for the Prime Minister's office. But I'm not aware how Minister Blair organized his office, how they took material off the system, whether the CSIS actually delivered this material in hard copy form. I'm not aware how it would work in that individual minister's office.
But the system you're referring to is the top secret network?
It is a top secret network.
Top secret network.
I mean, there are many different systems, but yes.
Okay. And it could have, would there have been emails sent? Because Minister Blair said there's no such thing, there's no account. But Johnson says in his report that this was sent by way of some form of email to his attention.
I honestly can't speak to the details because I'm not aware. That would be a question you'd have to ask the CSIS director or someone in the minister's office.
Okay. With respect to the, you talked about briefing the Prime Minister on foreign interference. Did you see the PCO Daily Intelligence Brief of February 21st, 2020, that noted that there was a, quote, subtle but effective, end of quote, interference network by Beijing in the 2019 federal election?
So my understanding is that was part of the daily intelligence brief that was put together by the International Assessment Secretariat, which worked under me. I read, as I said earlier, between 5,000 and 7,000 documents. I do not remember that specific piece of intel. Those daily intelligence briefs would have anywhere from 5, 6, 7 to 10 items, and I don't recall specifically seeing that or reacting to it.
And so it follows you don't recall briefing the Prime Minister about that?
I briefed the Prime Minister more broadly on foreign interference. That would have included election interference, but briefing him specifically on that item, no. And
Jody Thomas, when she appeared before the committee, indicated that that February 21st, 2020 daily foreign intelligence brief would have been part of the Prime Minister's reading package. Is that your understanding?
What would happen is that the daily intelligence brief is then morphed into a weekly intelligence brief for the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister does not necessarily get the daily intelligence brief, but a weekly, and the weekly would not necessarily cover every single item in every single daily. So what was plucked, I cannot recall, and obviously I can't even recall that specific item, so I can't talk to that. So it would be very difficult to categorically say that it automatically went from the daily to the weekly, which was for the Prime Minister. Does the
Prime Minister read his daily reading package, in your experience?
I can't speak to whether he read it on a daily basis. I don't know.
And what about his weekly?
I'm
package?
quite confident he read his weekly.
Why are you so unsure about the daily
Because he
package?
got a PM weekly intelligence brief. That's what he received. I'm not sure if he saw
Jody
the
Thomas,
daily.
you just said he also received a daily reading package. So why
The daily brief was not aimed for the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, the Prime Minister weekly intelligence brief went directly to the Prime Minister, usually on a Friday. Whether the Prime Minister was seeing the daily, which had a very, very wide circulation, PMO certainly saw it. There's no doubt about that, I would suggest. But whether the PM was seeing the daily and reading the daily, not sure. Again, there were two separate items. One was specifically aimed at the PM. That was the weekly.
And who would decide as to what was put in the weekly? And what
That was
left?
left up to the International Assessment Secretary working within PCO.
Would you consider that this was a significant breakdown in the fact that we have at least two sitting members of parliament who were targeted by the Beijing regime, that information was passed along to the Minister of Public Safety, the Deputy Minister, the Minister's Chief of Staff, and he didn't see it. And then a memo was sent in July of 2021 to 3 deputy ministers plus the National Security Advisor to the Prime Minister, your successor, and no one saw it.
Question?
Can I answer that question? Certainly, when I saw the news reports, it did raise some concerns. I've not looked. It raised some concerns, but I haven't seen all of the intelligence. And any intelligence that crossed my desk, I'm assuming that this document would have been based on some source reporting, and I certainly would have wanted to take a look at the source reporting, the nature of the intelligence. Was it a human source? Was it a intercept? Was it, if it was a human source, was it a human source with a corroborated reporting history? So I'd have a lot of questions.
Mr. Cooper, resist. Mr. Cooper, resist. Resist, Mr. Cooper. Mr. Cooper, Mr. Cooper.
I wanted to get your thoughts on how this has all transpired, how it's come about, the leaks that went to the media. As a result, some are saying that this is whistleblowing, and this is. I do personally believe some good may eventually come out of this because we're trying to, correct the gaps that may exist. But what is your belief in terms of what are your thoughts regarding the leaks that have taken place, the responsibility of the media, and basically what's transpired here? Do you think this is good for our national security?
In terms of the leaks, categorically, unequivocally, it's wrong. It's against the law. It undermines our national security in terms of potentially exposing to hostile state actors where our strengths and weaknesses are. It potentially exposes human sources to retribution. It literally puts lives at risk. This is not the way to go about this. So I know that there are a lot of people out there saying the whistleblower is a Canadian hero. Not in my books. Not a Canadian hero, and not a whistleblower. There's been no explicit wrongdoing in terms of laws being broken or malfeasance or anything like that. You can certainly be upset that the government did not respond in certain ways to some intelligence, if that's the way you feel.
Sir, do you think the situation is worse now when it comes to confidence in the Canadian government compared to when you conducted the study and tabled your report in May of 22? Yes or no?
I can't answer that question, yes or no, because I haven't seen opinion polling. I don't know if Canadians have less trust in government, but certainly there have been a series of events over the last year since both the Ottawa U report and the CG report came out, which have, I think, confirmed a lot of our concerns. And so those are probably somewhat alarming for Canadians, without a doubt.
I'm a little surprised to see that you've come here but have not seen all of the reports in the newspapers and do not have all the information stating that Canadians do have less confidence in government. And if they want an independent inquiry, it's not because they have confidence in the government, it's because they want someone to shed light on national security. Mr. Rigby, and I was disappointed in your testimony that you can read so many documents, but words such like financing candidates and electoral process would not catch your attention. In all of the reports you've written, the memos given to you, I understand there's a lot of information there, but when it comes to an attack on our democracy, I can't understand how that would not raise questions and bring the issue to the political level or signal the alarm. You said yourself you had direct access to the Prime Minister when you asked for that access. Why have failed on that file, Mr. Rigby?
Madam Chair, I read 5,000 to 7,000 documents. I would suggest that a lot of those documents, probably the vast majority of them, represented threats to the democracy of Canada. Foreign interference is not the only threat to democracy at the moment. A whole range of other issues. I was dealing with a multitude of threats, a multitude of issues. There was a pandemic going on. So if, I don't know if I missed these documents or not. If I missed a document or two, I will take full responsibility for that. But for someone outside the system who's never been in that kind of work to suggest, well, I'm really surprised that you didn't pick this up, it's easy to say. It really is. And I would suggest walk a mile in the shoes of the NSIA.
Thank you.